Today, we buy a Miata. It is a 2007 6-speed manual Mazda Miata with a power retractable hardtop. The car had 73,000 miles on it when I bought it, and I paid $8,000 to my friend Steven. Steven had acquired it for only $6,000 and he was flipping the car. Now this is the car that I would buy today if I was starting over on my fire journey. The dog absolutely loves the Miata. By far his favorite car. So every time I jingle the keys, he gets all excited about it. Larry, you wanna go for a ride? Okay, so we're gonna put his harness on. Now I wanna go over why this is such a good sports car for fire if you're in your teenage years. If you start with something like that as opposed to this, you'll actually be able to go out and buy things like this and Ferraris and McLarens, whatever you want when you're in your 30s. And so that is a really great starting point. To buy something like that for $6,000 right now, when the car market is hot, that's a really great starting point. Okay. So I sold the electric car, and then I got this car for the dog, and he loves this car. So these wheels are gonna get replaced with the RPF ones. I'm gonna roll the windows down for the dog real quick. This power retractable hardtop is very cool, if you can see that. Folds down very quick. Now up here we have a 4-cylinder engine, and I think it has a little bit over 160 horsepower, which is plenty with a car this light. The car moves pretty well. It's not bad for how much it costs. Now there's a couple things that can fail on this when I start taking it to the racetrack. This coolant bottle is known to fail, so I'm going to replace that with an upgraded one. The catalytic converter is in the header. And so one of the things that people do on the racetrack is they swap out this for an aftermarket header. And of course I have to swap it back when I smog it here in California, but I may find a way around that. The suspension on this one is extremely soft, so I ordered some Öhlins, but the highlight is the double wishbone here. So this car handles really well. Once we put those larger, stickier tires on it, and the Öhlins, we take it out to the racetrack, it's just gonna be a total blast to drive. Now the other stuff that I need to upgrade, of course, is the brake pads and the fluid. Looks like the fluid hasn't been changed in here, but easy enough to do that. And again, this is very budget friendly. This car is very inexpensive to run. Not just to buy, but to run. So to put tires on it, to put brakes, to put coilovers on it. The Öhlins that I purchased were under $2,000, which is pretty inexpensive for Öhlins. And the wheel set was also very inexpensive. I think that wheel set was equivalent to buying one wheel for a Corvette, one forged wheel. And so being able to buy inexpensive things like this, especially when you're starting out trying to save money, is really great. And I think that this is one of the most underrated sports cars right now, and it's just such a great value. So let's go drive it, and I'm gonna show you why I like it so much. Up here, we have my fuel gauge, and you see that I'm almost empty, and I've driven 266 miles this week to work. I've been commuting in this car. I've put a little over 2,000 miles on it since I bought it from that guy who was in the review earlier, and it's just a great car. Very inexpensive. It cost me about $50 a week in fuel, which is more than an electric car, but the fun that it provides is tremendous, and so that's where the value comes in. 6-speed manual transmission. Now this transmission was a little bit hard to get in and out of gear, and so I swapped it out for the recommended Ford fluid, and you can find that recommendation on the Mazda forums. Now this transmission is very precise. It's similar to the S2000. It reminds me of the S2000 a lot, but you do need to put the right fluid in it. Without the right fluid, it's kind of hard to get into gear. And so once you put the right fluid in it, it's like butter. It shifts like butter. It's a very satisfying car to drive. The steering wheel feels a little bit large in diameter, but the feedback through it is pretty great. The suspension is very soft, so when I go around these corners, the car has a ton of body roll, so that's definitely something that I would want to upgrade, and that's why I got the Öhlins for it. So the interesting thing about the suspension is when you're really moving around a corner, it has so much travel that even though there's all this body roll, it still absorbs the bumps, even at full lean. And so the handling is phenomenal, even with the suspension being so soft. The only negative is how long it takes to settle into the corner, and so tightening up the suspension will really transform the behavior of the car. So that's the first thing I'm doing, is the suspension and then those wheels and tires. Now I'll give you a full throttle run up here just so you can see how fast the car is. One of the most interesting things about this is where the cup holders are. They have cup holders on the door panels. So I have my hand sanitizer over there, and I put my water bottle here when I'm driving. And then you have a center console here. You could put drinks in here, but then it would get in the way of the shifter. So these side cup holders are very much appreciated. So you really have to wring this out to get it moving. So we're gonna rev it out. And the transmission is really great. All right, now we're going a little fast, so I'll slow down. So just a really great transmission, shifts right into gear, reminds me of the S2000, and they're really great handling balance too. The biggest disappointment with this car coming from other sports cars is the engine. The engine is not a very exciting feeling engine. It doesn't rev very high, but it is fun. The characteristics of it are pretty fun. And so I am going to enjoy this car on the track. And what I enjoy most about it is the fuel economy. So when my fuel gets down here towards empty, it only takes about 10 gallons to fill it up. So from a budgeting perspective, when I'm looking at the cost of fuel, I just have to move the decimal point over 1 point, and I know roughly how much a full tank of fuel is gonna cost me. I think it's funny, my dog loves this car, and when we go around the corners, he'll lean. You see how he leans towards me when I go left? So depending on whether I'm going left or right, he'll lean into the corner. Now watch the dog, he'll lean into me as we come around this U-turn. There's a nice lean, good job, Larry. So yeah, this is the sports car that I would buy today if I was starting over. I know that when we go out and we review these expensive cars, they may seem out of reach, but when I was young, I was riding the bus to college, and I started with the Honda S2000 when I was first going to the racetrack, and those were the cheap cars to buy back in the day. I got my first S2000 for $6,000, which is very similar to this. I really believe that keeping your cars cheap allows you to invest more, and the interest just compounds so fast that within 5 to 10 years you'll find yourself with enough money in the bank to buy a Ferrari and a house and all those financial goals that you want to meet. This is the car that I would start with today. It's a ton of fun, it's inexpensive to own, and it is great to drive. All right, we're gonna fill it up with gas now, and I wanna show you why budgeting with this car is so easy. You can see that the premium over there is $4.69 per gallon, and I'm probably gonna fill it up with about 10 gallons. If you just move the decimal point over 1 point, that's roughly what this fuel tank is gonna equal, and it makes budgeting very easy. So I'm guessing that it's gonna be around $46.90 to fill it up with gas. All right, so we were only 19 cents off, and it's like that every time I fill it up. Now the top goes up quick enough on this that you can do it when you're stopped at a light. And we're gonna give him some air here. Now another important thing is, if you're looking for a Miata and you're gonna take it to the racetrack, you wanna find one with an oil cooler. The oil cooler actually helps out a lot on the racetrack. And so they started putting them in the 6 speeds in 1106. So yeah, this one has the oil cooler. It was built in 2006, November 2006, and it has the oil cooler. And I think that's the first month they started putting the oil cooler in these. And so to look for the oil cooler, you'll actually go under the hood and see the coolant pipe going down into the top of the oil filter housing. And that's how you know that you have an oil cooler. All right, so as you can see, the total was $46.71, so the decimal trick with the premium fuel works pretty well. It makes the NC Miata really great for budgeting when you're figuring out your monthly expenses and you figure out how far you can get on a tank. You know exactly how much it's gonna cost you just by glancing at the gas station. And so it's one of my favorite things about this car is the 10-gallon fill-up. And then of course the driving experience. The driving experience is just really great for what it is. It's a little bit short on power, but when you're commuting, it doesn't really matter. And I have a feeling that when I get out to the racetrack, when I set this car up, I'll be just as fast as some more expensive cars. And that'll be really fun to watch and see how it does. And so yeah, with this project, I'm just going back in time and purchasing something super inexpensive to show you that you don't need to go out and buy a Ferrari or anything expensive to have a great time with your car. That is all I have for you. Thank you for watching. Make sure that you enjoy your car.